I thought I'd show you my engine. It's originally ex-Shadow Flight Centre. When mine was converted from a B to a C, this engine was put into it at the Shadow Flight Centre. So by the time it was put into this aeroplane, it had done about 800 hours, and it had had 2 new cranks. But since I bought the aeroplane, I've now done another 1,000 hours in it without replacing the crank. So cranks do last a long time if they're looked after. So this one's lasted at least 1,000 hours. I might think about putting a new one in over the winter, next winter. But just to show how good the bearings are, I've got one of Conrad Beale's bearing testers from SkyDrive. So if I pump the syringe backwards and forwards, it's not completely clear from on the video, I don't suppose, but it's got a clearance of about 0.04 millimeters, which is well within tolerance. The limit is 0.09, and it hasn't changed from 0.04 since I started checking it fairly soon after I rebuilt the aeroplane. I do look after it quite well. I give it a decoke and change the plugs, iridium plugs, every 300 hours, whether it needs it or not. Rotax, they replace the plugs after 25 hours. But iridium plugs and ordinary plugs, I expect, last much longer. So 300 hours is easily achievable. Too much maintenance is a bad thing, because you can make mistakes and disturb things. And it really doesn't need a decoke inside 300 hours if you're using modern oils. The rings will need freeing up, but after a decoke they pretty well seize up straight away with carbon, so it's pointless keeping freeing them up. It works perfectly well. I get full power, doesn't change. Another thing I point out is I've tried to capture everything with the locking wire here, so it captures all the clips and the filter should anything fall off. The exhaust could do with a repaint, but it hasn't got any cracks or holes in it. The springs are stainless steel. I've never had one of these fail, whereas the old spring steel ones used to break at this sharp end, just by the loop at either end. And again, I've tried to capture every part of the spring, the loop at the end, plus the spring and the loop at the other end. Even one of these little loops can cause a nick in the propeller if it goes through. You'll notice I've got an oil tank and an oil pump on the back of the engine here. I'd recommend fitting one of those. It meters the oil down as you reduce the throttle. It's connected to the throttle cable, so that on reduced throttle you're using a lot less than 50:1 mix. It only needs probably down to 100:1 at very low revs. With premix you're fixed at 50:1, of course, so it uses a lot less oil, and I don't get any oil on the fin nowadays. It stays clean, whereas before I used to. You might think that having an oil pump is one more thing to fail, but they're actually pretty bulletproof. I've not heard of one failing, and it's easy to see if it's supplying oil. There are 2 little pipes going up to the carb inlets, so as long as you can see oil in these two little pipes, then it was obviously working last time the engine ran. Just about see both pipes there. Another thing I wanted to point out is use of Jubilee clips. I've used these very neat, lightweight, easy clips they're called, rather than Jubilee clips. I've counted up 30 in total on the engine, so that's quite a weight saving, and they look a whole lot better. And very easy to put on and take off. They detach easily with a small screwdriver. And the pliers that you apply them with, very cheap. There we are.